Hello and welcome to this week's session of Mastering the Markets with me, Matt. I'm a senior analyst at Prime XBT and I'm super excited to be with you guys for this post-US elections trading session. So it's been quite an eventful last 24 hours. I'm sure everyone's already seen cryptocurrency has been on the move. It's been quite an exciting time. So let's dive right into the facts, and I've got some interesting points I want to mention to you today. We're going to run through a couple of charts as well and have a look at how price action has kind of moved overnight. There's been a lot of volatility and a lot of movement in both indices, cryptocurrency, as well as commodities. So let's dive right into it, and I'm excited to be here with you guys all today. So as we know, we actually have the Federal Reserve speaking tomorrow at the FOMC meeting minutes. Now, that is going to be quite an interesting one, considering we are finding ourselves in a very interesting situation. And I say that because we are expecting further interest rate cuts from the Fed. We know that they wanted to kind of cut interest rates by 1% by the end of this year. We are forecasting and anticipating that there is going to be a 0.25% cut tomorrow. So what does this mean going forward, especially with Trump being in the presidential election and now actually being the 47th president going forward? Because we are kind of in the scenario where we are potentially going to run into some risks around inflation. So it's a bit conflicting in terms of what is going to happen going forward. We know that Trump is very pro-business. We know that he wants to include a lot of tariffs on neighboring countries going forward. So there is this expectation that there is going to be heightened inflation, and thus the Fed is going to have to kind of keep interest rates quite high, with that being said. So this is quite an interesting period we are in right now, especially considering our final meeting for the FOMC is happening in December. And that is also where we are going to get a really good understanding from the Fed what they anticipate for the year ahead, especially in terms of interest rate cuts. So we know that with Trump administration coming in, there's going to be a lot of hard new policies coming in that are going to be in favor of businesses. We know that he's going to want to cut rates, bring down sort of taxes, bring in less regulations, which is obviously going to help businesses grow. So we're going to expect a lot of volatility coming into the equity market. I'm expecting things like the S&P 500 and NASDAQ to kind of carry on. These sort of policies that are going to be coming in are definitely going to be in favor of your large and smaller cap businesses, right? Especially in the sectors from a banking as well as technology perspective, as well as manufacturing. So it's going to be quite interesting going forward what is actually going to happen. I'm very eager to see how the Fed kind of controls interest rates going forward. We also had NFP data come out last week, Friday, which was kind of a bit of a shock to everyone. We had actual results come in at a staggering 12,000 jobs only added in October. But now remember, that was due to mainly the hurricanes that happened in Florida. And also on top of that, there were some strikes happening in Boeing. So there's a bit of conflicting data that's coming out right now. It's going to be quite interesting to see what happens going forward. We also know that Trump has been quite a big advocate and a big fan pushing cryptocurrency in his campaigns. We know that they want the US to kind of be at the forefront of change and be, say, the leading sort of adoption holders of cryptocurrency going forward. So what does that mean for cryptocurrency? That is what we're going to dive into today. Now, in terms of the price action from the dollar side of things, if we continue to see growth kind of picking up, inflation kind of going higher, I do kind of anticipate that the US dollar will actually be strengthening with that. Now, that also depends on what the Fed does with regards to kind of interest rate policy and monetary policy going forward. So there's a lot going on. Today's been quite an exciting day already. So let's dive right into the technicals. Let me show you what I've been looking at on the charts, and we can kind of go through things a little bit more in detail. So if you have a look over here, this is actually the dollar index currently on the weekly time frame. So if you have a look here, we are currently trading above 105. Now, I would almost anticipate that we are going to head into this area of around 106. So that is going to be quite interesting for the dollar, especially considering, all of these tightened policies. What is kind of going to happen? We know that the Fed is going to kind of also be including sort of interest rate cuts going forward, etc. So let's see how the dollar plays out. I mean, you can see on the day, we are already up 1.73% based on this news of Trump coming into presidential election. So this is going to be quite an interesting to watch. Obviously, the dollar definitely is going to have a major impact on your currencies, such as Euro dollar, USD JPY, your big majors. So keep an eye out on the dollar index, especially going forward for FX currencies, etc. Now, if we had to dive into the technicals a bit more, if I look at this on the weekly time frame, we're still pretty much stuck within this range. So we could sweep liquidity on either side. Let's say we sweep at around 106,500 and then potentially catch some sort of pullback before continuing higher. We've got these highs that happened at around 2022, which are sitting at around 114. Do I think we can get to these levels? Now, that is kind of the major question, depending on how sort of strict these policies are that come in with the Trump administration. It's definitely going to affect the way in which the dollar kind of trades, and we could potentially see some short-term strength followed by maybe some weakness and then continued strength again. So these are the areas I'll definitely be watching on the dollar going forward. I think the first one and the most obvious would definitely be around this resistance area of around 107. That kind of lines up with pretty much these highs that we saw mid-October last year. So that's going to be quite an interesting area. Now, obviously, the talk of the town is definitely Bitcoin. We have Bitcoin breaking into new all-time highs this morning in the early hours of Asia trading session. So we're currently seeing price trading at around $74,000. Now, this was something that was quite key because I actually mentioned this in our previous streams that I was looking to kind of see a reaction from price going forward. And I really wanted to see how we would trade going through these all-time highs if that was the case. So right now, the most logical next step would be around $80,000 if we can continue through this area of interest. So if I to mark out this right now, I would be looking to see how price action kind of closes on the day. And I actually want to sit back and just wait, because sometimes you might get these sort of, buy the rumor, sell the news events. Obviously, we know with Trump coming in, it's going to be in favor for cryptocurrency going forward. However, to what extent are we going to actually continue to see this sort of continued volume coming through cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin? That is something we're going to have to kind of just wait and see how the next few days play out, right? So we obviously had the sort of big move day on day of almost 7-8%, and this is pretty much after Trump has been elected. So let's see how price kind of trades through these areas. I want to see if we can close above this all-time high, which was previously printed at around $73,500. I want to see if we can get above here and then look to play any sort of pullbacks. So if you guys can remember in my previous sessions that I was speaking with you, it's pretty much as simple as now just waiting for price to kind of show you its hands, and then any sort of discounted sort of pullbacks that we get, try and capitalize on those moves and try get in before obviously a continued push into, say, new all-time highs and price discovery, right? So for example, this was something I was looking at on Bitcoin last week, and I was a bit hesitant of it purely because we didn't rate. If we had closed above this all-time high, say pre this election, then I would have been a bit more confident about it. However, because we rejected this resistance area, which was aligning with our previous all-time highs at around $73,500, I was a bit skeptical if we would actually push through that level, because I wanted to really see some sort of clear direction in terms of where we're going to go forward, right? And if we have a look at Bitcoin right now, we still kind of run this risk, that price may potentially just close below this level today. Not ideal. We would like to see some sort of continued sort of strength pushing into new all-time highs, say at around $80,000 or so, then looking for a deeper discount pull back and then kind of continuing into new all-time highs. That's the kind of play I'm looking for in Bitcoin right now. I'm looking to see how we can kind of hold up in these areas. You know, if we have a look here, you have this previous resistance area that hold really nicely as support. We kind of retested that, bounced once, and we kind of came back into this area and then have pushed out there further. So the technicals are definitely in alignment with, say, the fundamentals of Trump coming into election and into power. That is definitely what we want. We want a combination of good technical analysis and good fundamental analysis. If we can bring those two together, that really helps build a strong trade idea and a strong thesis, especially going into, say, the new year. Now, we know historically Q4 has been quite a good month for cryptocurrency in general. And if we have a look at some of the altcoins on the day, we're seeing stuff like Solana, you know, driving as high as $188 today, 12% on the day. We're seeing a lot of bigger sort of major altcoins kind of also picking up the pace a bit. The likes of Ethereum, Link, ADA, Cardano, Toncoin, XRP is also finding its feet a bit. Then you've obviously got a bit of the sort of AI plays such as Inge, FET, Render. They're kind of also pushing higher off the back of this good news for those tech companies, right? Because when we get to the crux of it, we're gonna see some nice policies coming into play from the Trump administration, which are going to be in favor of technology. And we know Nvidia is a big driver for technology prices. It's definitely going to push the way in which our AI coins run. It's definitely going to push the way in which the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 run too. So that takes me kind of into my next sort of asset class that I wanted to deep dive into, and that was the S&P 500 with you. We temporarily broke out of this trend line. Now, you know, a lot of traders, especially the retail guys, we kind of either are looking for one of two things, right? Especially in scenarios where you have a pretty big ascending trend line like this. If we break, we're looking for either a continuation or we're looking for some sort of fake out, right? We've kind of found some local support here at around $57,000, which kind of lined up with this sort of internal support zone, if you want to call it. We've respected that, and we've actually managed to push higher on the day. We're almost 1.2% up on the day. Same for the NASDAQ. NASDAQ is also up 1.3% on the day. So those are really good sort of indicators based on the fundamentals. With Trump coming into election, you can kind of keep these in mind in terms of, you know, with these stronger policies coming in place, higher inflation, higher growth, how is that going to look for the economy? And it should be good, right? So we're already seeing things like risk assets such as Bitcoin kind of moving in favor based on the alignment with the campaigns. We're seeing things like the S&P 500 also move in alignment. We're seeing the dollar index also move in alignment with the Trump administration campaigns and what they have promised to deliver. So now it's a case of, is Trump going to actually deliver on what he's promised? And we're just going to have to wait how that will look in the sort of future to come, right? So this would be kind of my play on the S&P 500 right now. I would be quite interested to see if we can continue into, say, fresh new all-time highs. You know, if we kind of come back into this ascending trend line as, say, a break retest, I'll be then looking for some daily sort of confirmation on price action to see if we either continue to, say, break and roll over, so something like that, or if we continue to now trade into, say, new all-time highs. So with us respecting this, it kind of does align up with a little bit of this sort of previous resistance area we had over here. You know, if I draw this out over here, you can pretty much see that in alignment with those two areas. So this mainly being my previous resistance area, which we broke out, kind of retested, and now we kind of retested it again. I would like to kind of see if we can continue into new all-time highs off the back of this, or if we are going to hold this sort of ascending trend line that we have broken and continue to roll to the downside. So for the time being, I'm actually also not really too interested in playing anything from a technical perspective here. I would like to kind of see some sort of push like this higher, some sort of pullback into this, and then pretty much continue into, say, higher pricing. So that would be quite a nice sort of trade idea on the S&P 500, similar to the price of Bitcoin. if we can kind of get that push into, say, the 80,000s zone, we can then look to play some sort of pullback and then potentially look to kind of continue into the upside, right? So that's pretty much in a nutshell what I'm looking for on those two pairs. Now, keeping in mind what is actually happening with gold, that is the fourth pair I actually wanted to look at. So gold has been quite an interesting one. We're actually down nearly 3% on the day. Now, remember, when there is a bit of uncertainty in the market, traders and investors tend to kind of invest their money in safe haven assets such as gold. When there is a bit of political instability, maybe there's a bit of uncertainty with regards to how inflation or interest rates may play out from a monetary policy perspective, then you see the likes of gold really kind of trading in a very sort of one-dimensional way and manner. And now with Trump coming into election, there is definitely a bit more certainty. Now, markets love certainty. We know what the Trump administration did for the markets when he was previously elected. So this is definitely why you're seeing the sell-off today on gold, because there is definitely this sort of assurity now in the markets that there is some sort of clarity, there is some sort of certainty as to what is going to happen going forward. We know Trump is going to be elected. We know he's mentioned these points around tariffs, growth for small businesses, stuff like that. So you might start to see the price of gold kind of trade back a little bit lower. Now, we have repriced ourselves within this 50% region, say, of the Fibonacci tool here, which is kind of around $2,700. This also aligns up with this previous resistance area that we are now retesting our support. So it's going to be quite interesting to see if we can continue to hold in this area, or do we break this area now and kind of roll over. So we've also had pretty much a little bit of a break in, say, this ascending trend line, this internal ascending trend line. And I wouldn't be surprised if fundamentally now we start to see some sort of pullback on gold. We've got the daily sort of 200 EMA or 50 EMA sitting down at around 2,600. That kind of lines up with all of these pockets over here. If we did start to see some correction in gold, that would definitely be it. Now, obviously, with Trump being elected as president, that is just one thing in terms of the markets. It's definitely going to take time for policy and sort of decisions where there is a lot more coming in from, say, a global and macro perspective. That's going to take time. So, we might still see a bit of volatility within the likes of, say, gold, S&P 500, Bitcoin in the next, say, year or so. But I definitely think with how I am seeing price action develop now in these few assets, is definitely telling us the story, right? So those are kind of the four sort of asset updates I have for you. If we have a look also at NASDAQ, we are also still trading below all-time highs. Now, there is a bit of divergence happening between the S&P 500 and, say, the NASDAQ, because obviously the S&P 500 traded into new all-time highs pre-election results, and NASDAQ still seems to be kind of trading below it, right? So it's going to be quite interesting to see how this plays out going forward. Can NASDAQ also pick up its feet a bit? We know Nvidia, the tech stocks kind of do drive the price of NASDAQ a little bit more. So let's see if we can kind of get that push going through NASDAQ going forward, and if we can also break into new all-time highs. So in terms of trade ideas and plays, I'm actually quite risk averse at the moment. I want to kind of let the market kind of settle down a bit. There's obviously a lot going on in the markets at the moment. There's a lot of volatility stepping in, and we can see that we've had some tremendous sort of price action moves on the day, and with the likes of both Bitcoin and, say, some of our risk assets really moving, it's going to be quite an interesting one. Now, we also know that Trump has been quite a big advocate of oil, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how the production and manufacturing of oil and the selling of oil goes under his Trump administration. I definitely do think that will have some sort of impact on the price of oil. I do forecast maybe the price of oil kind of increasing with this happening, especially if he is going to increase tariffs, etc. So this is going to be quite an interesting sort of period we're going to go into now for the markets, especially considering, you know, Biden has been under administration for the last 4 years, and we've had a really good run on both the sort of digital assets as well as the traditional assets. So it's going to be quite interesting to see if we can continue that sort of move going forward. Now, if I want to quickly just show you some options potentially that you could be looking into, I would definitely be looking for some sort of discounted price action on the likes of Bitcoin. So for example, if we have a look at the price of Bitcoin now, I just want to have a look here quickly. So pretty much my trade idea on Bitcoin would be to try capitalize on this move pushing higher through the likes or through the use of, say, Prime XBT, a great platform which I use daily. You can pretty much capitalize on these kind of moves, and especially from a leverage perspective, it's quite nice when you have a distinct sort of high and low, and you can pretty much trade the sort of discounted pullbacks like that and protect yourself from adverse movements in the market, right? So let's say I wanted to kind of just dissect price action here. I'd be looking at something like this. So if we can continue to move into new all-time highs, that would be great. And price discovery regions around 80,000. However, if this is my local low and this is my local high based on this move, and we do get some sort of quick pullback, I would like to actually make the most of this move. So how can you do that? It's really simple. I kind of tend to use the Fibonacci tool in this instance, where I would mark out my high and my low. And if you have a look here now, I would pretty much want to try and capitalize on, say, a quick, if this happens, obviously price can continue to trade into new all-time highs and leave us behind. However, if we do get a pullback, I'll be quite interested to see if we can trade into, say, $71,000 quickly and then kind of pick up our feet and continue higher. So how do you do that? It's pretty simple. So if you look at this price action over here on the left, I just want to kind of showcase it to you a bit better. This is what we were looking at last week on our live stream. I was a bit skeptical because we hadn't broken above here. If we had broken above here, I probably would have placed some limit entries on that order. However, we didn't, so I thought let's just wait. So if you have a look here now, it's pretty simple. Yeah, you're just marking out your high and your low. On the daily time frame, I really like using the daily time frame to kind of take swing positions. I would then basically just mark out this area like this. Okay, if you want to refine this area, so what actually happened here? Well, it's quite simple. This was your previous high. We then broke that with this move up. So if I drew that out like this, so what you're looking for now pretty much is some sort of price action where we kind of fall into a discounted region and then continue higher. So if you have a look here, we swept these lows over here, right? And then this would be sort of my area of sort of demand, and that kind of lines up perfectly with this 50% Fibonacci tool, right? So how could you have traded this if you were a bit more keen on taking on some risk? You would have done something like this. You could have had your entry like that and your stop below and trading into, say, new all-time highs, and then pretty much you would have had this rollover, price would have tagged you in, and then you would have had this daily move to the upside, right? So that would be something I would actually be quite interested to see if we can get now on Bitcoin. So if I just keep these areas like this, I would now be interested to see if price action, if we can close on the daily above this level at around 73,000, I would then be interested to see if we can continue to hold this chain. So this would be a sort of my bullish order flow chain over here. So I would look to kind of play a discount. So in this scenario here, it would probably look something like that, right? So this was my low that we swept over here. and then we broke this here. If I look on the lower time frame, which is around the 4 hour, yes, you can see that perfectly. So maybe just to kind of zoom it in a bit, let's go into the 4 hour. So I would look now for something like this on Bitcoin. So if you have a look here, I'm going to just leave these areas marked out. Okay, so pretty much what I'd be looking for now on Bitcoin is some sort of pullback. So if we have a look here, this would be my break-in structure over here. Why is that my break-in structure? Right, so if you have a look here on the fractal, it's actually telling me, the fractal indicator is telling me that that was my last high. We then swept this low over here, which was actually quite beautiful. And then we traded into new all-time highs. So similar to if you have a look at this price action over here, right, we can observe how we broke this high over here. And then we swept these lows over here. Right. So applying the same sort of rules and principles, okay, I want to then look for some sort of entries back down in here. That's if we actually get this pullback, we could continue to trade higher. So this is on the 4 hour time frame now. I would then be interested to see if we can fill this gap. You can see we've left this void over here. Right. So if we can pretty much come and trade back lower into, say, if this was my high, right, I've now marked out this area here. That is my high. So this is the zone I'm interested in, right? So what I'm looking for now, and you can actually see here, we actually are a little bit overbought on the RSI indicator from the 70% level. I would be looking to see if I can get some sort of pullback down into this area here and then look to trade higher, right? So if I had to actually draw that out a bit better, I'd be interested to see if we can capture some sort of longs. You know, I doubt we'll come this low, but I can set 2 entries. So pretty much something like that, and then have my high targeted like this. Okay, and what I'll look to do now is I will actually look to try and split my orders out. So I will try get 1 entry on the 50% level of this Fibonacci tool, trading back into, say, 80,000. That gives me a nice risk to reward of, say, 2 to 1. And then I'll also have a deeper sort of entry. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be looking for now on BTC. If we can get some sort of pullback based on this confirmation. Do I think we can get it? I'm not sure, because obviously we've had quite a big push today already. So what I'd be looking for now on the price of BTC is something like this. I'd be looking to see if we can kind of tap into here and then look to kind of trade the momentum back into the upside. So this is what I'm going to be looking for. We might get some sort of tag based on the Federal Reserve's FOMC meeting minutes tomorrow. That's why I'm quite interested to see if it can be a quick move in and out. This would be my point of invalidation at around 66,500. And I want entries at around 71,000. And I also want entries at around 70,000 just in case. So if you guys have not already signed up on the Prime XBT platform, you can do so by visiting our Prime XBT website. I've already got some funding in this account, but if you don't have funding in your account, you'd need to deposit into our platform and then make the necessary transfer. So it's really easy to do. Once the money comes into your wallet account, you can then transfer it into your CFDs or your crypto futures platform. For today's example, I'm actually going to show you how to set a limit entry order on the crypto futures platform. So I'm going to head over to my platform now. You can just simply click on the button over here like that. Now you can see I actually have AVAX signed up over here. You just click on the drop down, brings you a list of currency options that we have to trade. I am now going to click on BTC USD Tether. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to look based on the 4 hour. I'm going to look to see if I can get entries on 2 different levels. So the same as what I marked out there. That was around 69,500. And then I also want an entry based on the 50% level of this tool. So 2 entries, one based on around $71,160. So how do I do that? It's really easy. So make sure you're on the correct ticker name. I am on BTC USD Tether. I will then go onto the limit entries because price is already trading above my level of interest. So when price comes back down, I want to be tagged in these entries and I want to continue going higher. So how do I do that? It's quite simple. I'll click on limit. Let's say, for example, I would like to do 0.5. I will now need to change the price. So I need to change it to 71,166.4. You can change your margin type depending on what you like. So if you would like to use cross or isolated, let's just say for today's tutorial, I'll do it on isolated. I will then keep it on 10x or I'll just change it to 5x. Then you'll see it'll change it for you once you've obviously modified it. Okay. And then pretty much what I'll need to do is I don't have enough margins, so I'm going to need to lower my entry. So let's say I'm going to split this up. I'm going to go into two limit entries, 0.1 on 2 either side. So I'll place the buy order, I go confirm, and now you'll see that my buy limit entry is over there. Okay, and then the second entry that I want is on this level over here. That's pretty much if we do drop lower. So if I had to look at this now, I would say that's around 69,500. So using the limit function again, 69,504.6. I want to buy. I'll maybe, if I can get this entry, I will be probably looking to do an isolated margin type of around 10x. I'll go place by order. Okay, perfect. Now you can see I've got my limit entry set. And I'm pretty much just going to look to see if price action can kind of pull into these areas, if I can get some tags, and then I can continue further, right? So that's what I'm going to be looking at now on BTC going forward. And if price does continue into new all-time highs, I'll just wait for the next sort of pullback. I'll reevaluate how price is trading and then look to capitalize on the move thereafter. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what I'm going to be looking for on BTC. Hopefully we can get this push going sort of higher into, say, new all-time highs and new price discovery. That is pretty much a summary of how you could set limits on BTC USD Tether on the crypto futures platform. So yeah, that's pretty much it from me today. I hope you enjoyed today's trading session. I will see you in next week's session. Let's see how the rest of this week plans out. I'll keep you guys updated in the Telegram group. So make sure you subscribe to the group if you have not already joined. And also make sure you kind of follow my sort of daily technical analysis research. If you don't know where that is, I can show you. You pretty much go on the main Prime XBT platform website, click on the learn and research section where it says market research. You can click on that. And then over there, you will see I have a whole sort of range of technical analysis ideas for both cryptocurrency, global markets, etc. We also have in-depth fundamental research as well as our sort of market news articles, which you can find under the section 2. So I hope you enjoyed today's session and I'll see you guys in next week's. Thanks for joining in, and yeah, make sure you get your questions through before the competition ends. Thanks guys.